video may be the hardest video that I'm ever going to have to make. And the reason why that is because we're going to be ranking the top 10 wrestlers of the Ruthless Aggression era. As you guys know, WWE introduced the Ruthless Aggression era in 2002, and it lasted all the way till 2008, which ultimately then they would switch into the PG era. It was a whole thing. But in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the top 10 best wrestlers of the Ruthless Aggression era. And obviously, we had some pretty big moments from the Ruthless Aggression era, like this one here.
Because of Ruthless Aggression!
Or this one here.
Ruthless Aggression!
And yeah, you knew it was a thing. WWE made it very known. Now, guys, my name's Billy TKO. If you guys are new here, I ask that you guys like this video. And also, if you haven't yet, make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel and get notified every time that we post a new video. So without further ado, let's go hop in to the top 10 best pro wrestlers of the Ruthless Aggression era. So the Ruthless Aggression era was interesting because you got a lot of talent that were a part of the Attitude Era that really reinvented themselves and became main event stars. And looking at number 10, we are going to be looking at no other than JBL. As you guys know, JBL was a part of the APA. He was a tag team wrestler. Him and Ron Simmons, they tore up the tag team division during the Attitude Era. But ultimately, later on, going into the Ruthless Aggression era, JBL would switch his persona up completely. He did a complete 180. And he became one of the biggest dirtbag heels that we all know today. Obviously, JBL, he was like this stockbroker on, you know, the New York stock market and all of these things. And he was just wealthier than everybody else. He was better than everybody else. And ultimately, people would go on to hate this gentleman for all of the things that he said. Now, when I think about JBL, one of the things that I think about quite often is his feud with John Cena. Obviously, he was John Cena's, like, at the time, biggest counterpart. You had the Doctor of Thugonomics John Cena. That was the version that you got against JBL. You had the street kid versus the guy who sits on the stock market. You know, they were perfect counterparts. And I love the idea of JBL at number 10 because he really was a person who completely reinvented his career. And quite often you see today, even still online, people talk about their childhood and they talk about how much they despised JBL. So with that being said, that means JBL was doing his job perfectly. He was doing the right thing. So you guys can let me know how you guys feel about JBL at number 10. I do think he sits comfortably here. I do think he played an important role in my childhood in particular, so I feel like it would be wrong of me if I didn't put him here. So, number 10, JBL. Coming in at number 9, I have no other than Rey Mysterio. As you guys know, Rey Mysterio, he was the little underdog. He was the ultimate opportunist when it came to being the underdog. This man completely defined what it was to be a luchador inside of the WWE. Being the size that Rey Mysterio was, nobody ever predicted that Rey Mysterio would go on to have the career that he has today. Rey Mysterio, right even now, you can make an argument, is one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time. Like, he really is, and his longevity shows that. But in that era, from 2002 to 2008, Rey Mysterio really dominated. And when I say dominated, I don't mean he had these crazy title runs, but he really was the poster boy. He was what all kids inspired to be, because Rey Mysterio showed kids that, hey, if I can do it, then so can you. And he was the ultimate dreamer. And so much so that in 2006, Rey Mysterio would actually go on to defeat Kurt Angle and Randy Orton in a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. And he would ultimately become the World Heavyweight Champion. He was the first to ever do it of his size and his caliber, because prior to that, WWE has always been known for giving the World Championship to somebody who was a little more bulkier, somebody with a little more size, somebody who they could really show off to an audience, not somebody who was, you know, maybe 5'8", 5'9" at the time, you know, didn't really, I think he maybe weighed 200 pounds, and that's even a stretch, you know, I'm not 100% sure of his weight at the time, but ultimately, Rey Mysterio showed kids how important it was going to be, and truth be told, the guy has one of the greatest opening sequences in a wrestling match ever. Him and Kurt Angle at the SummerSlam in 2002, that opening sequence of like a 7-8 minute match, I forget exactly how long it was, hands down one of the greatest, if not the greatest, opening sequence to a match ever. And obviously, the storyline that they created with the passing of Eddie Guerrero, God rest Eddie Guerrero's soul, the man is forever missed, and we'll get into him a little bit later, ultimately was beautiful, and there was so much impact behind it. You know, how long he lasted in that 2006 Royal Rumble was just outstanding. And then obviously he did his stuff in the cruiserweight division and really put that cruiserweight division on the map. That is one thing that I really remember about that time period of the Ruthless Aggression era, is the cruiserweight division, because of somebody like Rey Mysterio and another, you know, we'll give him a little shout out here, another big name, Chavo Guerrero. They really put that cruiserweight division on the map and really set the tone for what the future was going to look like for wrestlers of their size and their caliber. So ultimately, I'm putting Rey Mysterio at number 9, and you can make an argument that he could even be lower on this list. Ultimately, that's for you guys to decide, and you can let me know all of that down in the comment section below. Okay, so coming in at number 8, I do have Batista. Obviously, you guys know Batista was this guy who came up in OVW. He was jacked. He was WWE's poster boy, and he is exactly what WWE wanted at the time. Batista was this guy, heavy hitter, and he fit in the mold very well with guys like Triple H, with guys like John Cena, with guys like Randy Orton. He really did fit in that mold. The reason why I have Batista at number 8 is because his impact actually didn't last all that long into the later years. Obviously, at this time, he really ran rampant. He became a multiple-time world champion. He had a beautiful, wonderful WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 23 against The Undertaker, or when he won his first world championship at WrestleMania 21 against Triple H, and how he left Evolution. And then on top of that, he was a part of Evolution. He was a stepping stone for himself in some cases. Triple H really brought Batista in and showed him the ropes of WWE, and they liked Batista so much that he actually got put on the injury list, and ultimately WWE chose to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong here, it might have been Randy Orton, but they waited for one of the two guys, and it just showed the potential that those two gentlemen really had coming up at this time. He would ultimately go on to have some great feuds with the likes of Triple H. There was a feud with The Undertaker. There was feuds with Mark Henry. Like, there were so many memorable feuds when it came down to Batista. And ultimately, Batista does deserve to go on this list because of the importance that Batista offered. That guy is truly, and I mean truly, outstanding. Now, obviously, in later years, Batista would end up quitting the WWE. He would come back, and then he would leave again, and then he would come back. So I think that's kind of my little bias here in this list, is the later days and stuff like that. But truth be told, I think 8 is a very comfortable number for Batista, but that's not really for me to decide. That's actually up to you guys. And at number 7, I have no other than Eddie Guerrero. Now, guys, if I'm going to be 1,000% transparent with you, which I always will be, if we were to talk about Eddie Guerrero and if he would have continued his life further, Eddie Guerrero probably would have been number 1 on this list. I'm just going to keep it a buck, 1,000 with you. Eddie Guerrero passed away in 2005, and Eddie Guerrero, in 3 years during this Ruthless Aggression era, really made a mark for himself, winning the WWE Championship for the first time at No Way Out, defeating Brock Lesnar. This guy really set the tone for what it was going to be like for smaller guys. And I know I talked about Rey Mysterio prior to this, but Eddie Guerrero really showed that you can overcome anything. And, you know, he had defeated addiction. He had beat his demons, essentially. And Eddie Guerrero came back after being fired from the WWE and really just set the tone for how important he was going to be. And he would have, oh my God, some of the greatest matches. You know, one match that really comes to mind is his match against Kurt Angle, and that was at WrestleMania 20. And then ultimately that moment with him and Chris Benoit at the end of WrestleMania 20, that was truly a remarkable moment that ultimately it's no longer talked about, you know, for personal reasons or whatever the case is. However WWE feels about it, they no longer talk about it, rightfully so, because of, you know, the whole Chris Benoit situation. So ultimately, at the end of the day, Eddie Guerrero, I do believe, at number 7, he sits there very comfortably. I do believe that if Eddie would have lived just that much longer, that we wouldn't even be talking about him here right now at the number that he's at. We would actually be talking about him probably at number 1, because Eddie Guerrero truly was that amazing pro wrestler. And who can't forget his feud with JBL, right? That's another feud that I remember. Now, ultimately, Eddie Guerrero isn't only known for his time in the Ruthless Aggression era. He obviously was a part of the Cruiserweight division in WCW and did some amazing things there. Him and Rey Mysterio numerous times tearing the house down. His feud with Rey Mysterio in the later years, he would turn heel and he became that bad guy that everybody despised. Eddie really knew how to play both of the roles. So that's truthfully why I say, like, I even like, it feels wrong putting him at number 7, because truth be told, again, if his life was that much longer, I don't even think we'd be talking about him here. He'd be in the number 1 slot, hands down. This guy, probably one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. And yeah, God rest Eddie Guerrero, man. Number 7. You guys can let me know how you feel about that down in the comment section below. Coming in at number 6, I do have no other than Triple H. Obviously, you guys know Triple H is one of the greatest bad guys of all time. He actually created Evolution. He really took a Ric Flair that was really going through some things and made him very relevant again. He also took guys like Randy Orton and Batista under his wing to show them the ropes of WWE, and ultimately would run rampant on Monday Night Raw for the good course of, maybe 2 years. And then obviously you guys can remember he had that match against Shawn Michaels, really bringing back Shawn Michaels after Shawn Michaels essentially was done with pro wrestling. Triple H brought him back and they had that stellar match at SummerSlam. Just ultimately such a beautiful moment. And then Triple H would also go on to, feud with the likes of John Cena, and they really tore the house down. And then he would feud with Mr. McMahon. Like, there were so many memorable moments with Triple H himself. I think he played such an important, prominent role in WWE at this time, in really setting forward the future and how it was going to look later on for the future. So when you think about what WWE is today, don't forget to thank Triple H, because that man really put a lot of the names that you see today on the map. So that's why we're going to put Triple H at number 6, because I will say that the rest of this list, there is a lot of people in Triple H, truth be told. You could also make a strong argument belong lower on this list. You can make that argument. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's all for you guys to decide. I love Triple H. I love everything that he's done. You guys can let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. And coming in at number 5, I do have no other than Edge. As you guys know, Edge was the biggest dirtbag heel in the stages of the Attitude Era. Now, obviously, or not the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, excuse me. Obviously, Edge was one of those people who it really didn't spring onto till later, and what actually kickstarted it for Edge was his feud against John Cena. You would see moments where Edge walked into the Cena household. They had the match at the Royal Rumble. There was the live sex celebration on TV. This guy was the ultimate counterpart to John Cena at a very important time for both of them. Edge was obviously a part of the Attitude Era. Him and Christian, they were a great tag team. Again, just somebody else who reinvented his career, knowing that, hey, I need to get to this main event status. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Well, how did he do it? You best betcha, John Cena. John Cena really paved the way for Edge when it came down to, hey, I'm going to put you in main event caliber scene. And ultimately what Edge did for John Cena was make John Cena the guy that we know today. So I have to put Edge at number 5 because I do believe he sits smack dab in the middle very, very comfortably. This guy ultimately is just so beyond outstanding, beyond words. Edge, to this day, is still out wrestling, still doing his thing, still tearing the house down. He's over in AEW now, known as Cope. This guy is just truthfully stellar. I can think back to his feuds with, like, The Undertaker and Vicky Guerrero and, the Edge heads and all of those things. Like, when I think about the Ruthless Aggression Era, Edge is actually one of the most important people that I think of in the Ruthless Aggression Era. And truth be told, the reason why that is because, here's a little fun fact for you, my favorite feud of all time is actually John Cena and Edge. It is hands down my favorite feud of all time. So I got to put Edge, personally, smack dab, number 5, right in the middle. That guy sits very, 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 very comfortably. All right, guys, so we're actually going to go ahead and stop the video. We're going to pause for a second. Make sure you're drinking your water. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about today's sponsor. Yes, we do have a sponsor in today's video. Today's video is actually brought to you guys by Into the AM. It is a men's apparel wear company. Now, as you guys can see, I actually have the Into the AM t-shirt on. They were actually very kind. They sent me 3 of their basic tees, and by God, they are some of the most comfortable t-shirts that I think I've ever worn, and I mean that quite literally. And I'm going to put right here, I'm somewhere over here, I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to scroll through their website for you guys to actually go ahead and check it out, because I'm here to tell you, the experience that I've had with Into the AM was outstanding. They were so kind, and they were, again, very kind enough to send this t-shirt directly to me. It means the absolute world to me. So make sure that you guys go check out at Into the AM. If you guys want to go follow them over on Instagram, definitely make sure to do that. It's much appreciated. Let's get back into today's video. So coming in at number 4, I do have no other than Randy Orton. Yes, the Viper, the Legend Killer. Randy Orton in the Ruthless Aggression era was stellar. I mean, the Legend Killer, that gimmick itself was outstanding. He beat up every legend that you could think of. And he joined alongside Ric Flair, Batista, and Triple H, and they created Evolution. And Evolution was truly that. It was an evolution. Evolution gave us 2 of the biggest stars that we know today. 3, technically. Triple H, Batista, Randy Orton, and those guys ran rampant for months, years, whatever. You know, Randy Orton, one of the things that I can think back to is his feud with Mick Foley. You know, that's really how he got the moniker of the Legend Killer, right? That's really where it came from. And then, obviously, he would go on to have some great feuds with, like, The Undertaker at WrestleMania 21 when they had their match, or what was it, the casket match, I believe, that they had. I think it was at No Mercy in 2005. I can't necessarily remember exactly what pay-per-view it was, but I do remember, like, Randy Orton burning the casket, and then, obviously, The Undertaker would come back, and ultimately, he would go on to win multiple WWE championships at this time, also rivaling himself with John Cena, him and Edge, Team RKO. Like, I remember all of those things, and then as we were moving away from the Ruthless Aggression era and we were going into that PG era, but not necessarily quite there yet, we did have Randy Orton creating Legacy, which would give us now the biggest star in WWE today, and that is Cody Rhodes. So when you think of Cody Rhodes, you have to thank Randy Orton and the things that Randy Orton was doing. He took somebody like Cody Rhodes under his wing, and it wasn't just Cody Rhodes. It was also Ted DiBiase Jr., who would, you know, have his own things that he had going on, which we won't get into in this video, but ultimately Randy Orton did do that. He was really setting up the future of WWE and ultimately did just that. So I think Randy Orton sits at that number 4 spot very comfortably. This guy is remarkable. Truth be told, my favorite pro wrestler. Quite literally, when I know I talk about CM Punk and that's my favorite pro wrestler, but, you know, right next to CM Punk is hands down Randy Orton. That guy is stellar. But you guys can ultimately let me know your thoughts on that all down in the comment section below. Coming in at number 3, I have Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels during the I keep saying Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression era, actually reinvented himself completely. As you guys know, he was also a part of the Attitude Era. He created DX with Triple H, and they completely tore the house down there. But ultimately, Shawn Michaels during the Ruthless Aggression era really went on like this greatest hits sequence. Like, it lasted from 2002 till 2010 when ultimately he would retire, but he had some phenomenal feuds, one being with The Undertaker. As you guys know, him and The Undertaker, they tore the house down, but ultimately he also retired Ric Flair. Yes, he was the person that actually retired Ric Flair, but that moment at WrestleMania, I want to say it was 24, at WrestleMania 24 was just completely stellar. And then obviously him and Triple H, they recreated DX and they brought that back and they feuded with the McMahons back in 2006. And then he would feud with the likes of Vince McMahon himself. And obviously they had that whole like Jesus Christ thing and he's praying to him. Vince McMahon didn't believe it because, hey, you know, you're Shawn Michaels and I remember everything that you did. Ultimately, Shawn Michaels just really ran, you know, rampant at this time. And then at WrestleMania 21 would ultimately give me and you one of the greatest professional wrestling matches of all time against Kurt Angle. And we got one of those great moments, I'm just a sexy Kurt. You can scroll past that if you don't like my singing. But ultimately, Shawn Michaels really tore the house down in the Ruthless Aggression era, really reinvented himself, and it all kickstarted from Triple H. Like I said, Triple H really paved the way for a lot of these guys on this list. Triple H brought Shawn Michaels essentially out of retirement, and they had like this no-holds-barred match at SummerSlam in 2002. Completely tore the house down. It was absolutely outstanding. So Shawn Michaels is going to sit at the number 3 slot. Coming in at number 2, I do have The Undertaker. Yes, The Undertaker, you can make the argument, belongs at the number 1 slot. Because during the Ruthless Aggression era, The Undertaker was another person who really just continued on, actually. He didn't necessarily reinvent himself. Obviously, he was the American Badass, but in 2004 at WrestleMania, he would bring himself back to the Dead Man against Kane in what was ultimately a great feud within itself, right? The whole brother thing, and then I buried you alive. Yeah, we all remember that, right? Amazing stuff. But that's not the only thing that The Undertaker was actually known for at this time. As you guys know, he had that feud against Edge over on SmackDown, and man, that was some stellar stuff. And again, talking about another person on this list, Randy Orton. The Undertaker really made Randy Orton who he is today. The Undertaker very much helped propel Randy Orton into that main event scene, and that's the guy that we get today. So when you think of Randy Orton, or you think of Edge, or you think of Shawn Michaels, or you think of Triple H, or you think of Eddie Guerrero, or you think of, Rey Mysterio, JBL, whoever it is, you have to add The Undertaker, because The Undertaker, in some cases, added just that much. He really did. If it wasn't this much, it was that much, right? The guy added a lot in this Ruthless Aggression era. He was really the locker room leader. This guy paved a way for so many people at this time, and really was the backbone for Vince McMahon at the time to really, continuously sell out different places, because people were really infatuated with the idea of The Undertaker, me included. I remember at WrestleMania 23 when The Undertaker came out and there was some lightning that struck, I was scared straight. Literally, I was scared beyond beyond belief, and pause on the straight part, but beyond belief. I couldn't believe what was happening, because The Undertaker was so out there in some cases. Like, he was so different, and as a kid, I couldn't necessarily understand it. So that's why I got to put Undertaker at number 2. He really is one of, if not the greatest professional wrestler of all time. When it comes down to just character development, wrestling in the ring, it didn't really matter. The Undertaker, the GOAT, Mark Calloway, so many different personas. This guy is outstanding. I could talk about him for days and days and days and days and days and days, but this video would be very long because of that. And I have to get into the number 1. Yeah, there's still a number 1. Can you believe that? Ultimately, right now, you guys, let me know how you guys feel about the list, how we're doing so far. Drop it in the comments. Tell me what you think. I'm very interested. And if you haven't yet, make sure that you've liked and subscribed, because those two things are very important. But now, let's go hop into number 1. John Cena. I know that was underwhelming, but it's true. John Cena is number 1 on this list. He quite literally kicked off the Ruthless Aggression era. You guys remember that moment on SmackDown when he debuted? Oh, what's your name, kid? Oh, my name's John Cena. What makes you think that you have the balls to face somebody like me? Ruthless Aggression. We all remember it. We all can very much recall him and Kurt Angle tore the house down. Now, ultimately, that wouldn't be the persona that we kept seeing from John Cena. A couple years later, he would actually go on to change his persona. He became the rapper John Cena, Mr. Doctor of Thugonomics. He ran rampant on SmackDown, whether it be as a heel or whether it be as a babyface. The guy truthfully ran rapid. If he went up against an opponent, he always had some type of rap for him. And this is at a time that, like 50 Cent, Eminem, all those guys were very hot. So rap was very in. Pop culture really understood how important John Cena was. The guy made any type of joke that you could think of. He made it at this time. So the Doctor of Thugonomics himself, John Cena, could just be by himself. Like, that could be its own separate wrestler, but it's not. No, we're not going to do that. John Cena ultimately, in later years, after he was drafted to Monday Night Raw with the WWE Championship, would change his moniker into, this more, like, white meat babyface, really super duper good guy, and ultimately that's what would lead us into, like, the Super Cena stuff. But when we think of John Cena, we think about his feuds with like JBL again. JBL was like the ultimate counterpart to John Cena. That's not the only person he would feud with. He would feud with somebody like Edge, right? Him and Edge tore the house down at this time. And then in later years, him and Randy Orton would continuously tear the house down. Or in later years, him and Batista would tear the house down. Or in later years, or even within that time frame, him and Triple H would tear the house down. Or maybe even a year after that, he would tear the house down with Shawn Michaels. Every single person on this list, up until this point, has interacted with John Cena in some type of way. The Undertaker included, as you guys know. Hey, kid, I like what I see in you. After John Cena's first match, lifting the hand up because, hey, the Undertaker shook my hand. I can't believe this. Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero would have multiple interactions with John Cena. John Cena, quite literally, was the greatest thing to come out of the Ruthless Aggression era. And I don't think there's actually any debate for where I put him here. I truthfully don't. I believe that he is the greatest wrestler to come out of this time. And the reason why this video was made in the first place was ultimately a big thank you to John Cena, because we are actually coming up on about 2 months. We are going to see John Cena's final match. So, just want to make sure that everybody recognizes and knows that this man, the 17-time world champion, multiple world championships, multiple championships in general, is quite literally the greatest when it comes down to this time. He's the best. So yeah, you guys can let me know how I did with this list, and you can leave it down in the comment section below. But ultimately, that is all that I have for you guys today. You guys can let me know how you feel about the list, once again, down in the comment section below. And if you guys haven't yet, make sure that you guys do like and subscribe to the channel. And also, like I said in today's sponsor, definitely make sure that you guys go check out Into the AM. Again, some of the most comfortable clothing that I've actually ever worn in my life. Like, I don't often get clothes that, like, fit the way that I necessarily want them to. And Into the AM really did a good job at making sure that this thing fit snug and it fit good. I look big in this thing. I feel... You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I like that. I like that. So make sure you guys go follow Into the AM over on Instagram, and you guys go check out their website, intotheam.com, because they have, it's not only basic tees, like they have numerous types of apparel. They have, streetwear, they have joggers, the whole nine. Go check them out for yourself. Again, if you go back into this video, you see that I put their website actually up in the video. So make sure you go check them out and show them some love. Shout out Into the AM. But other than that, that is all that I have for you guys today, and I will be talking to you later. Peace.